So this is just a kind of a midrash. I do have some, actually a bunch of scriptural reference, but I wanted to talk to you about it just a little bit. First, let me apologize by saying it's going to sound kind of sermon-like. I know that as Messianics, we tend to reject sermon-y type teachings because of bad experience we had. You know, we all got the feeling that we were lied to, that kind of thing, coming out of the church, and so we kind of reject that stuff. But in kind of an attempt to imitate our master of our faith, Yeshua, who preached lessons in Torah to give us the halakha, it's going to sound a bit preachy. And I'd like to point out, too, that even in Jewish congregations, the pulpit rabbi typically will give a sermon, either right before the Torah or right after the Torah. And it typically will relate somewhat to the Torah portion of that week. But and even yeshivas that they go to require rabbis in training to take classes in delivering sermons, that kind of thing. So, but you say, JD, we're not Jews. You're right. And we're not Christians either, right? So this is kind of what I want to talk about right here. So us differing from Christians, we became Torah observant believers in the protector of our faith, the Master Yeshua, right? And so as seeking knowledge, we would form our home study groups. Man, are you cold, brother? You must be freezing. My goodness. Gee whiz. I'm sorry, man. So, but we all had a common desire to try to discover every little tiny detail we could get from the Torah, because the pastors and the preachers weren't answering our questions. Either they weren't because they didn't want to, or they couldn't. And many times I know they couldn't. They just didn't. They didn't have an answer. And so we would sit for long hours as Torah study groups, and we would reference anything we could get our hands on, like the church fathers, the Talmud, Mishnah, Tanya, Zohar, Bachir, Sefer Yetzirah, Paris Remanim. The list goes on. We'd get everything we could get our hands on for compare and contrast to try to come up with the truth, and that's how we got to where we are, right? And that was so that we could quench our thirst for knowledge. We had this deep desire to get the knowledge, you know, and and we had a hunger for that, and a hunger for the Moshiach and for the Ruach. And those same issues that separated us from Christianity kind of separate us from our brother Judah, our esteemed brother Judah, because people are people no matter where you go in the world. I don't care where you go. And by and large, most of the people are not religious. They are not seeking out the Father on a regular basis. Now, they may pray, and I believe in my heart of hearts that Yah always hears and answers prayer. He hears prayers. He knows what the deal is, but most people don't have the passion to learn every detail like we did when we started out, right? So with all that said, and this being kind of preachy, in regular Bet Tefillah fashion, anything I say up here is open for discussion if you want to. So interrupt, ask a question, whatever the case is. It's not meant for you to just sit there and take what I say and get mad at me over it, but so, and over the years, we've seen people come and go from our group for various reasons. We lost a few to the Hasidim because we weren't Jewish enough. And we've lost others because we were too Jewish. And we recently lost some on an accusation that we're trying to create a fake Judaism. So, and that's true. We were accused of, what are you trying to do here? Creating some kind of fake Judaism? All the Jews are already in synagogue anyway. What are you trying to do? Right? We also saw in our history the almost complete annihilation of a Bet Tefillah group in northern Texas for all kinds of reasons. Lack of leadership, hurt feelings, and arguably in at least one case, maybe more, sexual misconduct or unwanted sexual advances. You know, we see they disappeared, and then they started believing in just ridiculous doctrine. Like, we couldn't understand, where are you getting this garbage from? Well, I remember one guy even saying the real true Sabbath is on Wednesday. And we argued back and forth, like, wait, what? Well, anyway, so, but at one time, before that, we had a pretty big united group of believers in Yeshua of Nazareth. You know, we came together on the things that we had in common. I can remember one Sukkot we had at Camp Ikawa where there was 100 more people there, and it was awesome. I mean, we had great teaching, we had great dancing, great music. We really haven't ever had a full-time band, except for sometimes Kerry Alexander would come and we could pull a few musicians together, or Gary would pull a few musicians together for something special. But so let's just talk about a little bit about our faith and our belief system. And I don't have a better term than this, our religion, right? Why do we do what we do here? So the book of Jude, you've heard me say this before, verse 3 says, "Dear friends, I was busily at work writing you about the salvation we share when I found it necessary to write, urging you to keep contending earnestly for the faith which was once and for all passed on to God's people." The faith that was once and for all passed on to God's people. What faith is that? Yes. I'd say, yeah, I would say Abraham, but where was it passed on to God's people? Well, one could argue that too, you know. Here's what you do, and we're reading about right now in Devarim, right? He's reaffirming at Horeb what's to be what, right? So then I have a question there. So he passed it on to those people. They were Israelites. They weren't Jews. They were Israelites. Of course, mainstream Judaism will argue that Abraham was the first Jew. That can't possibly be, because the term wasn't even there, you know. But does the Father love Jews and the nations equally? That's the question. Does God love Jewish and non-Jewish believers in the Most High equally?
Yes, because it's been taught to me that those who came out of Egypt were a mixed multitude.
Yeah, absolutely right. And they already had salvation, right?
Yes.
They were already delivered.
They were delivered from Egypt.
Yeah.
Not from their.
So as we go forward in just a little bit here, Bet Tefillah has always traditionally been known as a two-house believing congregation. That is the house of Ephraim, house of Judah, and the stick, right? And so the regular Haftorah Parsha, Vayigash, the Haftorah Parsha from Vayigash. By the way, I don't have a prize for you, but what book of the Torah does Vayigash come from? Anybody? Crickets? Bereshit. It comes from Genesis. Vayigash. It said, so I'm going to read some of it just so you know. The regular Haftorah for Vayigash is Ezekiel or Yehezkel 37:15-28. And the word of Adonai came to me, saying, "You, son of man, take a stick for yourself and write on it for Yehudah, for the children of Israel, his companions. Take another stick and write on it for Yosef, the stick of Ephraim, and all for those of the house of Israel, his companions. Then bring them together for yourself into one stick, and they shall become one stick in your hand." I'm not going to read the rest of the Haftorah there, but we're talking about the house of Judah and the house of Ephraim becoming together in one stick, right? So what does Romans 11:11-31 say? I want to talk about the difference here just a little bit. 11:11-31. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to read some of it. "And I say then, they that have stumbled, should they fall, let it not be. But by their fall, deliverance has come to the nations. Provoke them to jealousy. And if their fall is riches for the world, and their failure riches for the nations, how much more their completeness?" I want to move down just a little bit where it talks about us being grafted in, right? Grafted in. Going down to 18. "Do not boast against the branches. And if you do boast, remember, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. You shall say then, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Good. By unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by belief. Do not be arrogant, but fear. For if Elohim did not spare the natural branches, he might not spare you either. Seeing the kindness and the sharpness of Elohim on those who fell sharpness, but towards kindness. If you continue in his kindness, otherwise you shall also be cut off. And they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, shall be grafted in. Elohim is able to graft them in again. If you were cut off out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these who are the natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? So what is the difference between the stick of Ephraim and Judah becoming one stick and us being grafted into the natural tree? What's the difference there? You don't have to raise your hand, man. You just blurt it out.
No, I see it. Ephraim was a part of the nation of Israel.
Uh-huh.
Us grafted in, which we were here of the earth, we unbelievers.
Yep.
Who the Lord brought to him, and we accepted him, and then he brought us in. So now we're grafted into the root. So Ephraim was already a part of the nation.
Okay. Yep.
We're not.
Right. And now Ephraim's gone, right?
We're like the mixed multitude who came in believing.
And it's a large messianic thought and prayer almost that we think we're Ephraim, right? We think we're Yosef, who's been cast out to the nations. And it says, you know, you'll be scattered to the nations and you'll become like the nations, and nobody will be able to tell you different who is who. And some people might say that, well, if you look at the Hasidic Jews, say in Chicago, and they wear those round disky hats like they did in Poland, that's what that means. But I don't think that's what that means, because whenever you see those round disky hats, you say, those are Jews. They don't say those are Polish people. They say those are Jews that wear that. So what I'm talking about is when we were scattered to the winds, we married with them. We became them. We became the nations, or those people, Ephraim. Whether we are or not, I don't know. I can't tell you for sure that I have Jewish blood, and I don't know if you do. I would say your last name, there's a really good chance you do. So, right, very good. It doesn't matter if we're grafted in, exactly right. But we are grafted in. But being that we're grafted in, does that mean we're trying to be Jews?
No.
But we're no longer Gentiles either, right? So there's something we're supposed to be doing. Oh, tribe, that's good. I like that. But there's something we're supposed to be doing, right? And what is that? We read about it just a minute ago. There's something that we, as believers in the Jewish Messiah, are supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be provoking them to jealousy, and not out of hate or looking down upon them, right? Provoking the Jews, the natural branches. Exactly right. That's what we're supposed to be doing, provoking them to jealousy. So let me ask you this. If we're supposed to be provoking them to jealousy, do we provoke them to jealousy by acting like Christians and eating pork and doing those things? No. We're going to provoke them to jealousy by keeping the Sabbath and by keeping the feasts and trying to eat according to kashrut, right? We're going to do those things, and better than they are, and not so that we can say, hey, look what we're doing. You're not doing it. It's, hey, we try to do these things. And by learning their songs, by the fact that we're former Gentiles, believers in the Jewish Messiah, and grafted into that nation, that heritage is ours now. We should know how to sing Manistana for Passover. We should provoke them to jealousy by suffering with them, by fasting on the 9th of Av, or fasting with them on Yom Kippur, right? So what I'm getting at is here, they are our older brother, and even though they're not doing what they're supposed to do, our job is to provoke them to jealousy so that they will come to faith in Yeshua the Messiah and see. And then at that time, we already kind of know what we're doing because we've been following their example. That's how we honor them in doing it. But to answer the accusation, we're trying to create some fake Judaism, or that we're Jewish wannabes, right? But I think this is for me. This is what I think. That we express our faith in a Jewish frame of reference in order to show them that we honor them, number one. And sometimes we do things that are not even as messianic. We think, well, I'm not doing that because, and we don't want to get into keeping their traditions that, like Yeshua said, you wash out the meaning of the Torah by keeping your traditions. We want to keep those traditions that have enduring worth, that means something, the way we tie our tzitzit or something, you know. And I understand the techelet, you know, there's an argument for that, but this isn't disrespectful to them. You know what I mean? And some people would do things, I'm doing it because I can. And this is, the Bible says I can do it, so I'm going to do it. And I'm not telling you personally that that's wrong. It's wrong for me to do. So while I'm not considering myself to be a Jew, biblical Judaism is my religion. That's my faith. I don't know how else to say it, because at some point in history, it came to be known as Judaism. Maybe around 1400. I don't know when the term, it has to do with Judeans, obviously, and that Judeans survived all of the diaspora. They survived. They still exist. They're there. That's how it came to be known. We don't know when. And quite frankly, I don't care when. The bottom line is that biblical Judaism is my religion. Sometimes it's easier just to tell people, yes, we're Messianic Jews, because it's a long, drawn-out explanation, and they stop listening after about 3 minutes. It's just easier. But it doesn't mean we're trying to be Jews, or we're trying to have a fake Judaism, trying to create something. What we need to do is provoke our brother to jealousy by expressing our faith in the Messiah of Israel through a Jewish frame of reference. And that's what we do. And we don't do it exactly like they do. I'm telling you right now, they would not have a bluegrass version of Veshamru, but right, that's fine. And maybe at some point, I'll learn how to sing, or Wayne will learn how to chant a little bit, or maybe Wes or George will be able to do it rather. But anyway, so by practicing within the Jewish frame of reference, we're not trying to become Jews. What we're doing is testifying to the blessings that we have found in the Messiah of Israel. And that's what we're doing. So, and that's an answer to that accusation that was put upon us. And Colossians, oh, go ahead.
It can sometimes turn sour, because some people turn to Judaism not just as a source for religious encouragement and instruction, it becomes a way that they both dump their ego. And it can become destructive to other people, and kind of get this hoity-toityness, especially if they are biologically Jewish. They can become unbearable people with you now, because they believe that they're Jewish, they're better. If they buy clothes from Israel, they're better than you if you buy your clothes in Walmart or wherever. I can understand that someone kind of pointing this from fake Judaism.
Yeah.
Because it sounds feel like it becomes, people latch onto it as a pretense, and it's a way of bolstering their own self-esteem, not because they're trying to learn.
Yeah. We've seen that here with some of our people that have gone to the Hasids. We've seen that. That's an excellent point. Yeah. What else?
Well, there are people that are Jewish by heritage, but when I see them, and they say, "Oh no, I eat bacon and ham."
Yeah. I've seen that too. My rabbi's going to be mad at me, but I'm eating this ham sandwich.
It's like, don't even say they're atheists.
Yeah.
The Jews, they say
they don't believe. You're right. You're right.
They're Democrats and all that kind of stuff. And,
No.
You're right.
And so to me, it's like, well, so they are natural branches that were broken off. I would much rather be a branch that was grafted in than a natural branch that was broken off.
Sure. Yeah, me too. But I think according to these instructions, same here. I would rather be grafted in than broken off and not believing. But we also have to, for me anyway, we got to be careful not to be arrogant about that, because I know they don't believe in God, but he belongs to God. They belong to God. Nothing we can do about that except encourage them, right? Yeah.
I agree with you. We're there to make them jealous by our faith, but at the same time, it also says in the Word, they will know you by your love for one another.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just them, but we love our other fellow believers in Messiah Yeshua.
Yeah.
that are following the Sabbath and keeping the Torah as well, and peace and festivals. Because I think from as long as I've been in Messianic Judaism, various teachings go from one end to the other almost 180 degrees.
They do.
And I've come to a conclusion a while ago, and I think there's more unity in the fact that we keep the Torah, we keep the Sabbath, we believe Yeshua is the Messiah. It doesn't matter on some of the other stuff, like Hillel said, it's commentary.
Hmm.
But I do agree with you, it's not fake Judaism.
Right.
In a sense, if you really think about it, your faith in the Torah was given to the Israelites, the nation of Israel.
Right.
Out of that, there were 12 tribes. We didn't pick a tribe and say, here we are. That faith became known as Judaism.
Right.
So, in a sense, we are grafted in. We are grafted in by the Word of God, by the love of Messiah showed, and we are part of the group. We are just continuing, in essence, what the Lord had gave them at Mount Sinai, and we are doing our level best. It doesn't matter what you call me. I already know in my heart that my faith is here. So if you want to say it's fake Judaism, then why are you here?
Right.
If you want to go and be a Hasidim, you're more than welcome to go. I think you're wrong, but you should not take the Jewishness out of the faith, because to them, it's a way of life.
Right.
So it's not like your faith is, as I've seen in Sunday churches, my faith extends from Sunday morning till Sunday noon. Past that, it doesn't matter as much as football. I know, I've been there. It's your faith has to be every day, and you have to live your faith out. And unfortunately, for me, it took 30 plus years to even get there. So it's kind of like, it's not fake Judaism. It is, we are Jewish by faith through Messiah Yeshua, grafted into that root. So if you're not keeping what it says in the Torah and the writings, so the Nevi'im and the Ketuvim as well, if you're not keeping that, what are you doing?
Right.
Where is your faith? Like James says, I will show you my faith by my works. What works is he talking about? The Torah. So,
Yep.
I will give you more and more.
No, that's what I wanted. And so because we're celebrating those great things that we found, those great blessings, Colossians 2:10 says, and you have been made complete in him who is the head of all principality and authority. Ephesians 1:3 says, blessed be the Elohim and Father of our Master Yeshua the Messiah, who has blessed us with every spiritual blessing in the heavenlies in Messiah. So to answer the accusation that we're trying to create a fake Judaism, we are not. We express our love for the eternal and for the Messiah, for the Ruach, through a Jewish frame of reference, because we are grafted in. They're not grafted into us. We're grafted into them. He's not going to save us because we do things differently than the Jews do. We are grafted into the one true faith that he himself laid down and reaffirmed at Horeb that we just read, right? So with that, I'd like to talk about just for another 2 minutes, if I can. I'd like you to, if you have the opportunity, just because we do things a little bit differently than the church does, I don't believe in my heart that gives us a pass on evangelism. I think it is still up to us to spread the good news of Mashiach to whoever will hear it. So invite someone to come to our Monday night Bible study. You don't have to invite them to come here to Shabbat unless they want to. Tell them to come to our Monday night Bible study and have them start learning. Because that's where we started, was in small Bible study groups. And then we kind of branched out from that. Then at some point, we added a little bit of liturgy, and then we added a little bit of this and added that as we understood a little better the Jewish frame of reference for our faith. So I would encourage you to invite somebody to that. And then the last thing is, we're sitting on the cusp of an amazing opportunity to do good things for the Lawton community with this community center. And so I would urge you all to please pray about this, pray about it, and come back to us and say, hey, I think we might be able to do something good for the community in this area. I don't know what it is. Wayne and I talked about at one point, Bet Tefillah as an organization. What we never ask for tithes or offerings or zedakah, but people do give zedakah, and we do things with that zedakah. Most often, it's pay our rent, that kind of thing. But what we have here in this case is a Christian congregation that loves us, and they tithe into us. They give us money every month just because we're here. So we had talked at one time about trying to find something to support in the community, and we didn't decide on anything. We talked about maybe the food bank or Salvation Army homeless shelter, whatever the case is. We need to come up with something and say, hey, we want to support our community as Bet Tefillah. Just know that even though you don't know us, we love you. And number one, I think that is going to go a long way to say, what is Bet Tefillah? And then gives us the opportunity, another opportunity to show the love of the Moshiach, that everyone can have salvation if they just accept the blood shed of the Messiah. And that's about all I have. If anybody has any questions or ideas, please be thinking about it. Please be praying about it in earnest. Pray every day until you get an answer from the Almighty about the community opportunity that we are fixing to have. We're going to be thrust into it. We're going to have space over there. And I dare say at some point, people are going to come to us for something. I don't know what. They're going to come to us for something simply because we're there. I'm telling you, it's coming. I don't know what it is, but it's coming. So please pray about that stuff and invite people to the Monday night Bible study. If we have to move from that room over to here, it's not going to be a problem. We will be able to do that. So that's all I have.